Welcome to the Better Two podcast. I'm your host, Donna. Today's guest is Margaret Gurevich. Margaret has a brand new book out called YASHA'S Amazing Bar Mitzvah. And we talk about the book. We talk about her writing career. We also talk about her being a teacher, her favorite shows to watch, her cat named Goosie, and well, so much more. So tune in. Hi, Margaret. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm good. I am very good. You're a teacher. I was surprised by that, but it kind of made sense when I was looking at your background about the book you wrote because he's going through his teenage years and you also have a son. So I was
I
going to
do.
ask you kind of because you're a woman and you're writing about a teenage boy going through his bar mitzvah. Um, how was that for you as far as, did you take stuff from your own personal life as far as your experience growing up and then meld it with the people that you've dealt with, the students, your son? Did you take all of those experiences and make it one experience to write this book?
Yeah, so I kind of think Yasha is very much me as a
Okay.
teenager,
Okay.
except as a boy. Um, so because my son, well, he's 18 now, but he didn't have to deal with a lot of that stuff. And also, because there's a lot of things in the book, it's about um trying to be comfortable with who you are. And he's one of the few um Russian kids, Russian families in the town. And it's funny, it's based on the town that I grew up in, but we were like one of the first five Russian families here, maybe. And now there's so many
Hmm.
people who are. And whenever I tell people one of the first, they're shocked. So Yasha's experience, he's a little bit older because in 1986, I was 10, he's 13. But a lot of the things he experiences are things that I experienced. So had I been a boy, I think that that's I think that's what it would have been. And in terms of I feel like I do have the boy voice down, and I think that's because I have a son. I teach middle school. So I feel I did a pretty good job with that. But yes, I feel like he's kind of based a lot on me, and it's a story I wanted to tell. So
Makes sense. And I mean, like you said, you did take a little bit from the others. And that's, that's the thing when, especially like you said it in 1986. I'm an author myself. Most of my books are set in the 80s and 90s. And as you said, your son didn't have to experience certain things. And that's the truth because the younger generations, they don't know what it's like not to have a cell phone. They don't know
mm,
what it's like to have, not have a computer where card catalog was our friend. Those
yeah.
things. I mean, it's the difference in those little minute things. Somebody was telling me they had read one of my books recently, and they're like, "Why didn't she just text him?" I'm like, "Because it's the early 90s. We didn't do those things."
Yes,
So
exactly.
did you find it difficult to write back into that time frame, or was it very simple because you experienced it?
Somewhere in the middle, because there's a lot of things I experienced that I was able to put in. But then a part of me, like when I was reading, I was more just being afraid that I accidentally put in stuff from 2025 as opposed to, having it like the cell phone thing, right? So I'd be
Mhm.
writing and I'd be like, oh no, they can't text. They don't do that. But I really liked that they couldn't because all these things that could have just been solved, through a tech, that was not the case, right? And you had to actually go to people's houses and talk. And you couldn't catch an Uber somewhere. And you had to figure out if you were going to be biking somewhere. Or so different little things, and even like the money situation. You can't just be like, I have Apple Pay, right?
Right.
So I really like that. I love writing about the 80s and 90s as well because you don't have to include a lot of the stuff from now. And it's actually funny because when I write about this time period, I have to make sure I do include, so obviously I do text and everything. But when I think about characters, I just want them to be. But when you're writing about teenagers, and even adults, I guess, for that matter, you have to go back and be like, well, wouldn't they just text? Wouldn't they just figure it out like that? So it's kind of nice that I didn't even have to deal with that. So,
Right. Yeah, I mean, and I totally understand. I was having a conversation with somebody from England not too long ago, and somehow we got into the subject of layaway. And he didn't
mm.
understand what layaway was because they don't have it over there.
Oh.
And I'm like, and of course we don't really have it now, but I mean that back in the 80s and 90s, that was like, okay, I'm gonna go to work, I'm gonna pay for my stuff, I'm gonna put my clothes on layaway. Mom can't tell me what I'm wearing because I'm buying these. So you put them on
Hmm.
layaway and you pay for it. And those things don't happen now. It's like everything is instant gratification, where before you had to wait. And I think that's one of the reasons why, because we have the cell phone number and all we have to do is click a person's name, we used to know
Yeah.
how many phone numbers.
Hmm. I still remember some of my childhood friends. We may not be friends anymore, but I remember their phone numbers still.
Wow.
So I know my head has useless information.
I think we all
So
do. And not to, I kind of understand where you're coming from as far as being the first Russian family, because my parents split in the 70s and divorce had not been really big yet.
Mm.
So I was one of those weird kids that came from a divorced home. So it was
Oh,
kind of like you don't fit in because nobody knows how to react, that you're different and you're not the norm. So therefore you have to, I don't want to say acclimate, but you learn how to navigate.
yes. Yes, very true. Yeah. And I think too, like in my book, in your situation, when people don't know what to say, they also lean towards saying the completely wrong, inappropriate thing. So, and then it also, I think, makes you a target sometimes too, because if you're different, obviously that's an easy point to pick on. And if somebody wants to say something, they know what to say that would be upsetting.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah, definitely. And kids, let's be honest, and I know you're a
yeah.
teacher, kids can be really mean when they want to be.
Yeah, yes, that is true. And I guess some adults too who
Oh
don't
yeah.
grow up, but yeah, but yes, for sure. I think especially the middle school years, especially because people are navigating their own situations and a lot of times lash out at other people because of their own insecurities and things that they're dealing with. So yes, for sure.
What made you decide to become a teacher?
Um, I always enjoyed working with kids. Like I used to be a camp counselor and things like that. And then I was always loved English. So I felt those two would marry each other. Like, it would be a good it would be, I think that will work out well. I also though, like I really love doing private lessons too with people to help them with writing and creative writing. And my friend and I actually recently just started a college coaching business as well, where we help kids with their essays and making college application lists. So I guess anything where I feel I'm helping students is right up right up my alley. And that's why I think I write books for this age group. So
As a teacher and even working with the college students, how do you navigate the AI situation?
oh yeah. So I mean, at the middle school level, I have sixth graders, so it's not, they still feel like if you tell them that's not what we're doing, they they will listen, like they don't
Hmm.
want to do that. But I mean, when we do the essays with the soon to be college students, we working together, we, imprint on them that a lot of colleges, could tell. And I think the fear of being caught, especially because if you want to go into higher learning and you want to go into college, you don't want to be caught with that, situation. So they are good about that. But, they have been some instances. And I feel like one of the things that I think students are starting to understand, like at all the ages, is that AI, like it could be a tool to help, but AI, the amount of information you have to feed it so that it does exactly what you want it to do, you may as well just write it yourself at that point. Because you could tell a lot of times when they run it through AI, because the things that an AI gives back is not at all what we've covered in class. So they could have all this information, but it's not related. So, I guess because I grew up in the 80s and 90s, I'm trying to, I guess, like I'm all that way. I'm trying to come to terms with that. Like I feel there's an AI could be a helper, right? Like it could be a starting point. You could be like, I love sports. Help me generate 5 topics that would be great to write about. Okay. But then from there, you should go and do your own thing, Okay, because having your own voice is so important. Um, so yeah, so I think when I work with students, we talk about that it's, a lot of times we keep telling them they're smarter than AI because they put their own spin on the things they have to write about. Like AI knows so much. Like I even compare it to pictures. Like sometimes we'll take like images, AI generated images, and you could tell a lot of the times which are the AI generated images because they're just off,
Hmm.
right? And that's what it is. I feel like I tell them, sometimes their writing is just off, and I've done like in some cases, I'd be like, "This is yours. This is AI. I like yours better." It's
Hmm.
not, So I think I wouldn't say it's completely bad. It's definitely like a learning tool, but I think it's important that kids and teens, know that they could put a lot of themselves into a piece that AI just can't do, right? And you want to make sure it's the work that you would be proud of and you want to produce. So,
It's kind of funny because there's times when I'll say something on social media that talks about the fact that this is AI. And it's something like, oh, they ran their hand through their hair. It's like you have to realize that AI learned from other books.
right.
And I think that's the bigger thing. It's like, and you want, and like you said, you want your own voice. And so many people, I want to write a book. So I put everything in Chat GPT and I wrote a book. No, you prompted. You did not actually write.
Yes. Right. Exactly. Exactly. That's not the same. And you want yours to sound different.
Hmm.
And if everyone puts their work through ChatGPT, eventually it's just going to sound
The
the same.
same. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you also like hiking and binging TV. So what kind of TV shows do you like to watch?
Oh my goodness. So many and too many. I like a lot of like there's some mysteries that we like Murders in the Building, High Potential is a new one that we
High
like.
Potential's good.
I love that.
Mhm.
So I like smart TV, but also love like also smart TV about relationships. Like I love Shrinking. Um, I like back in the day there was like Gilmore Girls. I was into that. Dawson's Creek. I grew up with all those. Beverly Hills 90210, like all that
Yeah.
stuff. I feel like TV is like different now, but um, we just got into the pit, and I love that so much. I feel what it does, like if you want to talk about character development, because you're taking so each season is one day, and when you're looking at it per hour, and so you meet this character at the start, and then you see them at the end, and they did all these things to create this whole all these emotions and personality of the character, but you're like, oh, it's only been one day that we're seeing them.
Oh, okay.
It's really smart.
Sounds
So,
interesting.
so many things. Like I could go on forever. I'm trying to think what else, but then that's all we'd end up talking.
Well, you also have a cat named Goosey, and I'd like to know why
Yes.
did you name the cat Goosey?
So it wasn't me. When we got him, it was 2020, and our son was in sixth grade. And there's an Avengers movie at the time, and
Okay.
there's a cat that looks exactly like ours. But it's not really a cat. He's called like a fluorkin, so he's kind of like an alien. So when my son saw him, he's like, "That's who." And so he named him Goose because in Avengers that was his name. So hence, so he looks like the Florkin, but it's like, yeah, and we call him Goosie because that's his
Well,
affectionate name.
I was going to say every animal you have, they start out with one name and they end up with five,
Yes.
and they
So,
respond to all of them. So yeah. Hmm. So I had to ask also about your book. You talk about Bernie. Was there really a Bernie in your life that you wanted to hang out with that you kind of saw as a mentor?
so there wasn't in that sense because this is a man he meets at like the senior center and they bond but I was very, very close to my grandparents and I feel like they helped raise me. So to me, like this connection he has with Bernie is very much like a connection I had with my grandfather and my grandmother. And granted, it wasn't the exact same relationship, but just the things they do together, like playing cards and just speaking, and somebody who understands them. I always felt like that about my grandparents. Like, people talk about if you would ever go back in time. So if I would ever go back in time, it would be to like a time when they were still alive because they're just so influential in my life. So
think a
yeah,
lot of us grew up playing cards with our grandparents. My grandmother and I would have hot Ovaltine, and she had this copper cookie tin that had I don't know how many different cookies in it for
I remember
whatever
that.
flavor. And then we'd play rummy. We'd play rummy, and Carson would be on in the background because you're supposed to be in bed by now, but it's the summer, and she's letting you stay up. Okay. And giving you chocolate and cookies before bed. Let's think about that.
I know my grandmother was the same way. My grandmother says, funny, my grandfather knew English and actually lots of different languages. And he was a teacher when he was in the former Soviet Union. My grandmother did not know English, but she would watch a lot of these shows from back then. She watched Brady Bunch or she liked Webster. She liked Different Strokes. There's a whole bunch that she watched. Oh, Little House on the Prairie. So we would watch that and play cards or like dominoes, and she would have her own, way to like she because there's so much physical stuff going on in these and physical humor, she was able to understand all of those. So yeah, Yasha and Bernie don't watch that. Their thing is sports, but my grandma and I also like bonded on like different, TV. She'd be like, "Oh, let's watch that show with the six kids," which was Brady Bunch, or she'd be like, "Oh, I remember like it's called The Little House." So like she would
Hmm.
so
How many languages do you speak?
I just speak two fluently. So English and Russian are the only two. I know snippets of other things, but not fluently. So I can't read. Well, I could read and write in Russian, but like very, very elementary level. Like not even because I didn't finish. We came to the States when I was 3 years old. So I taught myself kind of to read and write in Russian, but it's like very minimal. I've been trying to teach myself to fluently read in Russian, but haven't had the time. Um, but I speak it and I understand it. So, yeah, and English, obviously.
Did your parents both speak Russian? I'm assuming they both did, and English as well.
Yeah, and now because we've lived here for so long, so we came here in 1979. Um, when they speak a lot of English now. I mean, they still speak Russian, but every conversation is like not solely in Russian. It's a combination of different English words. And my mother was still, when she starts talking, she's like, "Do you understand what I'm saying?" I was like, I I've known it for years. I don't speak it as much now, so I forget some words, I understand it completely. And my son actually started taking Russian in college this year. He only did a semester. That's all I needed, but he has other classes. He may go back. Started picking up things pretty quickly, even though like at home we don't speak it because my husband doesn't know Russian. He knows like a few words here and there because he hears us say it. But so yeah.
That's always, I had a friend in high school whose mom was from Italy. And I think the first couple of times I went over there, anytime she wanted to communicate with her daughter and she didn't want me to know or her husband to know, she'd start speaking Italian.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, what are you talking about? But you don't know. And being the person that can't speak it, you're just kind of like, mm-hmm. And a high school kid, yeah, you're definitely going, did I do something wrong? Does she like me? Yeah. But it was
Because the
interesting.
tone, you
Yeah,
don't know like
exactly.
what exactly.
Exactly. If you could understand the inflection more, it'd be like, oh, okay, she's cool. Yeah, but without the inflection and not understanding the inflection, nah, you don't know. You don't
Yeah.
know. So, how long have you been teaching?
Um, Total, I think, trying to think. So, I think I'm on 12 years now because I taught for 6 years out of college. Then I left and I was writing full time. And then I had my son, and then I did not go back again till he was 9. So I guess nine plus, so okay, 15 years total then.
And then, do you see a difference in the students from then to now?
Yes, very much so. I think I mean, you have a lot of kids where like they miss some of the socialization opportunities and academic opportunities because of COVID. So I think there's still a little bit of that we're dealing with, but also, the big thing of the like of social media and how tied everybody is to that. So, I think everything is different in that respect too. So I try to do a lot of activities that involve visualization and different visual components, not necessarily online. We're actually kind of going back and trying to get offline for a lot of things with, like with writing because of the AI component that you're talking about too. But also, I think kids like sometimes when it's too much screen time, like it's a lot for them, right? And a lot of times when we do things on paper, be drawing or writing, they get happy and they say, "Oh, good," and they'll close their Chromebooks, and it's like a break, and they feel it's different. So, I think I think while I see a difference, I'm hoping eventually like, it might go start going back a little bit to what it was when people see that not everything has to be on computers. It's a good way to like blend the two things. I mean, computers are great. There's so many things. We do plenty online as well, but it's nice for them to be able, like when you do things by hand or color, it's a different part of your brain that's working. And you understand material better. There will be all these studies when you like handwrite it. So I think all those things like are important as well. So we'll see where things go in the next few years. I don't know. It's funny. Everyone's talking about AI now, but who knows what it's going to be later. And also, like back in the day, and I'm sure you remember this being that you're an author as well, that people were saying like when people were starting to do e-readers and stuff, people were like, oh, that's it. No one's going to buy real books anymore. And everybody was freaking out and saying, that's it. That's the publisher. And plenty of people buy real books. Like it's still a thing. We still have libraries. We still have bookstores. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be as completely overrun, I feel, as people think, because there's still people that would want things kind of how it used to be. And I'm so glad we still have real books. I'll read it on my phone or on Kindle if I need to, if I'm traveling a lot and need to, but I really love to hold the book. And there's other people that feel that way too.
Oh
So I
yeah.
feel the same thing kind of with other technology that who knows what's going to happen. It's
Well, and the fact is, a lot of people are rebuking AI. They don't want it. They don't want it forced down
Mhm.
their throat. And I think that's the bigger thing is, Amazon suddenly put an app into or a component into their Kindle app, which is ask a book. And authors unfortunately can't opt out. Readers can't opt out, but it's basically it can summarize the book for you.
um,
If I wanted to buy the Cliff Notes version of a book, I would buy the Cliff Notes version.
exactly,
But
exactly.
so what else? You said you were full-time writing. I know you have one other
Yes.
book out. Do you have more than one other book?
So I have so I write under write under Margaret Gurevich, and I have a series called Chloe by Design that I wrote a little while back, but people are still buying it, which is nice. It's kind of like a Project Runway for kids. I did a few books for Penguin called Penguin Workshop called like from the Who Was series as well. Um, and then the book that came out last year was Ain't It Funny, which focuses on anxiety and which is really needed, especially like when I was growing up, nobody talked about that. People were afraid to say anything because that meant there was something wrong with you. And when I was younger, I had a lot of like issues with anxiety. I didn't know what it was. I thought there was something, wrong with me. Um, and I read some OCD and I read stuff now with all the explanation, like if you're experiencing this, and I was like, I was experiencing all that then. And I
Mm-hmm.
um so I feel it's nice. Like I do feel people are more open about that now, which is great. And I think it's good for students and kids to see that there's people like them and then there's not anything wrong with them and then there's strategies that you could do. And she also does stand up to combat anxiety. And the best reviews for that book, like you like it, you don't like it, but most either way, like say that it's a real accurate portrayal of anxiety, and that makes me very happy because 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 I feel with mental health, it's it's difficult because even people who experience the same mental health issue, be it anxiety or OCD in this case, um, if you don't experience it exactly like them, they think that it's inaccurate. And whereas really it's on a spectrum. So I was kind of trying to dispel that also because a lot of people think that like, oh, you have anxiety, so you can't be around people. No, that's one form of anxiety, but there's so many others. Like there's people that like I'm social, but I may be anxious about other things, right? And I feel like it's dangerous to put people in this box and then you're like discounting people's real life lived experiences. Um, and Yasha's Amazing Bar Mitzvah that's coming out. With that one, I also feel like I guess my goals when I write is that people could see themselves in the books. And the struggle I feel with identity in Yasha and who you are and learning to be happy with who you are, regardless of, people around you. I think it's really important. So I focus on like being a hyphenated American because I feel like I'm Russian Jewish American. And all those things make me. But when I was growing up, like Yasha, I felt it was a real struggle because people only saw the Russian because it was like the 80s and, it's the whole Cold War and everything. Um, and then even people sometimes in my Hebrew school class didn't view me like the same because of the Russian component. And then even though we came to America and we were American, people didn't view that part of me. And then so I struggled like, which is the bigger identity? And as I got older, I realized, no, you could be all these things and you could bring elements of your culture into, the United States
Hmm.
and what you're doing. And now I see myself as all of it. But it took a really long time to get there. And that's what Yasha struggles with. And I think people living here also with more than one identity in different cultures, it's like sometimes I feel they think like, or they're made to feel rather that you're less of an American if you still want to keep elements of your culture, but you could have everything and still be American. So,
Well, and we're supposed to be the great melting pot,
right.
I've had my own experience because recently, earlier this week, I had gone to the YMCA has a program called Cancer Strong. So anybody that's
Hmm.
gone through cancer, you kind of have a rehabilitation program that they have that's offered for free that you can go and you're with other cancer survivors, men and women, all different cancers. And I went through a whole cancer journey last year and close friends, one of them had cancer, but most of them didn't understand. Most of them don't understand what it's like. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is it gets to a point whether you're an immigrant, whether you are from a divorced family, that from the moment you're a kid, as you start to age, you get a label placed upon you. And I often say it's like a book cover because here's this book cover of who you are, and I'm going to look at you and say whether I like you or not. But the truth is, you're missing the point because we look at book covers that way. We look at book covers and go, "Oh, that looks like a great book to read," and then you could be disappointed inside. But the fact is, most people will look at you and they'll judge you by whatever label you have, how you look, and they might miss a great opportunity. And that's the one thing about the being in that group the other day. It's like, yeah, we all had cancer, but we all had a different experience because we all had different cancers. It wasn't everybody's here with breast cancer or everybody's here with this cancer, everybody's here with, no, we were all different. And we all found a unity to go there and do this and commit to it. And I think that's the biggest thing is if we could get past these labels, we would be much better off as a society, but we have to have those labels. And I for a long time I lost my husband in 2020. And when I
Mhm.
got divorced, I didn't mark divorced. I put single. I'm like, I'm single again. And so why do I have to put widow? Oh, it's on my tax papers. It's on everything that I have to be a widow. It's like, why? I love somebody. Yeah, he died. Why does it have to follow me around? Why does and it's not and when you get to heritage, I mean, I'm from New Orleans. As soon as I say I'm from New Orleans, oh, you must like to party. No, not really. Never have. But okay, you can assume that. And that's the thing. It's like, just accept me for who I am. Don't label me.
Hmm. I love that. And I love that you compared it to a book cover too. I think that is such a great analogy. I haven't like really even thought of that. Right, because we decide, do we want to be with somebody or be with the book, right?
Hmm.
Just by looking at the outside and we don't we don't know. And like with people, whether it's the accent or something else or where they're from, like you said, New Orleans, and people just want to assume. And I feel that goes too to the like people on their own. It's easier for them if they could compartmentalize and put people in boxes because it makes their life easier, right? But right, how much more beautiful would
Mhm.
everything be if we could just find unity, even if we're, everybody is different, because everyone could learn from someone, we could all learn from each other. So,
I mean, I've said
yeah.
it many a times about we go back to the Rodney King statement, can't we all just get along?
Hmm.
And if we could, if we actually believed in humanity and in peace and love and not so much violence and I want this and if we just took away the materialism and looked at humanity, we would be in a much better place overall.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I feel too, and I feel like literature is a great
Mhm.
place for that, right? Everyone could see themselves or find the human moments in what characters experience, right? Because few books have characters who are one dimensional. Everybody tries to make them because nobody's all good or all bad. Or like it makes me think of like I feel they have less movies like that now, but back in the day, we watched The Breakfast Club and all that. Everybody
Mhm.
was this like stereotype of one person, right? But there's so much more to people. Even today, we're talking about a book in class, and one of the characters in the book had mentioned that nobody would want to be friends with him if he was really smart. And I asked my students, I said, "Do you feel like that?" And they thought that was the most ridiculous statement they've ever heard. They said, "What do you mean? Why would I rather be smart than not? Why would they care if I was smart?" And I was like, and I said, "Wow, this generation is really different." I said, when I
Mhm.
was growing up, it was such a label, and you'd be like nerdy, and people tried to hide who they were, right? Intellectually. So I find that interesting. I think that like sometimes people now too, try to hide who they are because they're afraid of what somebody else may say. And in Yasha's Amazing Bar Mitzvah, also he tried to hide who he was and his culture because he wanted to fit in.
I hate to do this, but we got to start wrapping up. Is there anything that I haven't covered with you that you want to add?
I do want to refer people to my website.
Oh yeah,
That's
definitely.
okay. It's margiewrites.com. And you could get the book on Amazon, or if your local indie bookstore support, small bookstores doesn't have it, please ask them to order it so that more people can see it. I think in the end, it's just important that we see um, little bits of each other. Oh, and one of the other big things, so a big subplot in this book is the 1986 Mets. Can't believe I almost left without mentioning that. So that was the last time they won the World Series. That was the time that I became a Mets fan. And that was a big time in 86. It's like everybody was a Mets fan. So shout out to all the Mets fans out there. And I think that this would be a great book to read. Maybe you have somebody in your life who's older and saw the 86 Mets. You guys could read it together with if you have a child, or even if you don't, it has universal themes that people could connect to.
Well, and a lot of adults read YA now, so
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it's
your
accessible.
your website will be in the show notes. So check it out, guys. And thank you, Margaret, for coming on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Margaret and I had an interesting conversation, and I really could relate. It's not the exact same thing, but in the 70s, as I was saying, I was this kid who suddenly dad wasn't around all the time. And it was even more twisted than that because within a year after they split, I was living with the fifth grade teacher. So I really didn't fit in. But it was something I had to learn to navigate. I had to try to figure out how to fit into my own life. And I think that's a hard thing for most kids to do is to figure out who we are normally. But then when you have other things like coming from a different country, even when I moved from New Orleans to Shreveport and I was in my junior year, suddenly everybody talked like this. They had that twang, and I had more of a New York accent. Even though I was from New Orleans, everybody swore I was from New York. So I didn't say everything the same way. I mean, we had different words, and I've talked about that before in the podcast. We had different words instead of a median, it's a neutral ground down there. So, fitting in was awkward. But you try to navigate, you try to make the best of the situation and hope that you can find one or two people at least to be your friend. And I think that social awkwardness, if we don't know how to navigate, we don't know how to learn to navigate, it continues with us throughout our life and we never really discuss it. But it's something that, we try to focus, we try to make friends, we try to have the faith that we're going to continue on. And we still can make lifelong friends. But there's always that uncertainty. There's always, did I say something wrong? And that's anxiety. Anxiety will make you question. Anxiety will make you wonder if I did the right thing, if I said the right thing. And we don't really name anxiety. I didn't have my first panic attack until I was in my 40s, which seems crazy. But I think we all eventually can have one because we never really realize the stress we're under. And I've talked about that before about how the doctor said to me after the hubby died, "Do you realize all the stress you were under?" No, because that was life. That was life. And so, how do I recognize it if that is just life? And I think as we grow up, as I said earlier, when we were that little kid, we don't have those labels. We don't have those names yet. We haven't been picked on necessarily. But as soon as we start tacking on those things, it's like there's a commercial running around with somebody that has a bunch of sticky notes on them. There's two different. There's one with body armor and there's one with sticky notes. But if we could take each sticky note off of us, each one of those labels, think about how much lighter we would be. We wouldn't be labeled, the nerd, as she was saying, or the geek, or, the pretty princess, however you want to call it, the loner. If we could all just look past what we see. I'm looking at my hair now and I'm thinking, oh, I really hate it. At least when it was thin before, I didn't have to worry about the bald spot. But here's the thing. I have hair. I have hair again. I have eyebrows again. I have eyelashes again. I mean, if you go back to podcasts from this summer, you're going to see me without any of that. And in fact, into the fall, because I didn't have that, but it came back. And is it perfect? No. Do I feel confident with the way I look? No. Am I accepting of it? Sure. Because I don't want to go around wearing a wig. It would have been perfect to wear a wig during the winter, but I don't want to do that. It's not me. So I think we really need to try to give people the benefit and try to come together. One of the biggest things about labeling, especially like right now, and I don't want to get political, but because we label each other all these things, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't be ticked off because of the situation we are in this world. But I think the problem is eventually things are going to shake loose. And eventually we're all going to have to come together and talk and figure all of this out and work to make it a better place. And we can't do that if we're divided. And who benefits by us being divided? If we're arguing and not paying attention to what's going on in the world, well, things can happen that we're never going to see until it's too late. So we need to try to come together and be supportive of one another. And if somebody's done really crappy stuff, then that needs to be looked at. That needs to, they need to be punished appropriately. But if the person that's talking about it hasn't done it, then we have to talk to them and see if we can find some common ground. Because eventually, when all is said and done, there's going to be a lot of healing that needs to take place. And it's not just going to be healing in the United States, it's going to be healing in the world. Because as we all know, when I'm taping this, this is beginning of February. When I'm taping this, there's a lot of stuff that's coming out, and the world is looking, and the world is appalled. And we're going to have to get to a point eventually where we talk and we work through this. And the people that need to go to jail will go to jail. And we all need to heal and find a better way to make a better world. So we're not so dependent on what other people want for us, but as a community, as a whole, coming together and really making a difference in the world and in everybody's life. And sometimes that start can happen with kids. And I mean that in a positive way, not the disgusting way that has come up recently. Because as Whitney once said, children are our future. And they are, because eventually we all pass away. And so it's up to the next generation to keep going, and then the next generation. But how can we have hope for a next generation when everything feels hopeless? And the only way we can do that is if we keep going and we learn to find common ground and we learn to talk and we learn to look past the labels and look at the person's heart. Because sometimes maybe they're misguided with information that is not true. But if we look at who they are in their heart and soul, then maybe we can find some commonality. Because just like I said, I walked into that cancer center or that class and I found common ground. And there was an older gentleman there, and we were supposed to talk a little bit about ourselves. And the teacher said to him, if you can't, she said it to all of us, if you can't say anything more than your name, that's okay. And so this older gentleman, he's got to be in his 70s, I feel, says his name. And he's like, it's just too hard. And he broke down. And the teacher and the instructor was supportive. And then we all continued on eventually. But the thing is, there was raw emotion for most of us in that group, whether it be joy that we found a community or allowing us to talk about our situation and talk about the losses that we suffered from it. Because it is a process and it is something that when we don't really examine, and it's kind of like what Margaret was saying, that we avoid the tough questions. And when we avoid those tough questions, the thing is about that, it's like somebody telling you you have cancer, one of your friends, and or somebody passed away. And you know what to do when somebody passed away. You're going to be there right away. But eventually you move on. Eventually the people around you start focusing on their life. They quit checking in on you. And with cancer, well, people pull away because yes, there's some that are going to be supportive because this may be the last time you're going to be there. But then there's the other people that look at people and say, I can't deal with this. I can't watch you die. I can't watch you get sick. And my sister-in-law did that when my husband was in the hospital those last couple of days. I said, do you want to come see him? No, I don't want to see him. I don't want to have that memory of him. But it's still a memory. It's still a little bit of time. And so back to what I was saying, sometimes we all just need to try to figure that common ground out so we can embrace life and make a better place in the world instead of living in fear, because fear is toxic. So, on that note, I hope you check Margaret's book out. I have links in the show notes. And, you know, just keep going and try to make the best of your day every day. And take care of you, take care of your loved ones, and just keep going because it's important. So, on that note, I'd like to thank Fast Susie for the intro and outro music, Margaret for coming on and talking about her book and her life. And you guys, I thank you so very much for tuning in, whether it be morning, noon, or night. I so greatly appreciate it. And I'll catch you next time, guys. Bye.